Good morning, early birds. Welcome to the regularly scheduled 36th annual speakers meeting of early birds. And today we're going to have a really special day, but I'm Bob D. I'm an alcoholic, and thank you. I'm going to go ahead and read the preamble anyway, and while we're at it, we're going to pass the basket so that Hal can sit down here and go through his talk. We have our wonderful speaker, Hal Forker, today. Here's the basket. Is there a second one to go around? Yeah. We'll send this one around this side. God, what a... Well, you know, us, we're early birds. We have both the online early birds here, well represented, and the early birds in person. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership, and we are self-supporting through our own contributions. So AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution. We do not wish to engage in any controversy. We neither endorse nor oppose any causes. Thank you, sir. Well, our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. And please remember to mute your audio until you're ready to... Well, we don't need to say that today. You guys mute. Okay. And we're going to open up with a moment of silence followed by the Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So, Tina, give me a sound check. Do you hear well? Give me a thumbs up if it's good. All right. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Our good microphone was broken, and so the speaker is going to be projecting. And this is an open meeting of AA today. And in support of our singleness of purpose, we're here to listen to a speaker today. Our speaker on this 36th annual celebration of the founding of the Early Birds is Hal Forker. And, you know, I don't think that we need to say a whole lot about him because he's a friend to all of us. He does have 43 years of sobriety, so he... Giddy up. Yes, ma'am. And so we all started adding at that point. I'm going to be 96 by the time I hit 43 years of sobriety. So at this point, oops, I'm not putting your phone in my pocket, sorry. I'm going to turn it over to Hal to talk to us today. Hal Forker.
Thank you, Bob.
I've got my copy here. Go ahead. This is being recorded.
Okay. My name is Hal, and I'm an alcoholic. Hello, family. It's good to be here with you, and I'm glad you all showed up this morning. It's wonderful to be here, and I want you to know how much of an honor it is for me to be asked to be the speaker at today, because I join a number of very effective speakers and people who had a great story, including Kim, who's standing up taking pictures there, and Bill L., you know, who was the sheriff of Early Birds for a long, long time. I want to make sure that I acknowledge everybody. You know, I came up here from McAllen. You know, it was an 800-mile trip, and I had a lot of time in the truck to think about what I was going to say. And then last night I was up late trying to, you know, just there are a number of thoughts I'd like to express today, and I just I don't want to miss any of them. I'm probably not speaking loudly enough for the people that are watching, so I'll raise my voice a little bit. I don't want you to, those in the room, I don't want you to think that I'm yelling at you. I'm just trying to help out here. Bill L., when I was here when Bill was the speaker, and he started off his talk with a little poem, and it's one of my favorite poems, and I wrote it all out, and then I didn't bring it this morning because I didn't want to bring all of the papers. I didn't want to bring all the papers that you know, my notes that and so I left that out. But I think I can recite it. Awesome. And it is titled "The Pig and the Inebriate." And it was early last September, as near as I remember. I was walking down the street with tipsy pride. No one was I disturbing as I lay down by the curbin, and a pig strolled up and laid down by my side. While lying in the gutter thinking thoughts I could not utter, a woman passing by was heard to say, "You can tell a man who boozes by the company he chooses." And the pig got up and slowly walked away. And so much for that, okay? My first 2 years in sobriety were a roller coaster. And I've expressed that to many of you in the early birds meetings and on the Zoom meetings. And it was all because my ego would not let go. I had a very strong ego, and that actually helped me to survive, you know, because I left home at an early age, and my immaturity and the abuse to me with respect to work, it ruined my teenage years because I didn't want to work. I had been worked too hard when I was younger by a stepfather. So it was a real struggle just to earn enough money to put food on the table, you know, and have a roof over my head. But that trained me to, because I had worked and knew that I could accomplish, and then so later on when I got a fresh start in California, then I applied myself, and it paid off. But as with many of you folks, when I got to AA, I had allowed my instincts to go hog wild, and I was abusing alcohol and people, and I really wasn't a very nice person, and I had a lot of success in my career, more than I ever expected, and yet on the inside I felt empty. I was hollow on the inside. And I didn't understand why, since I had achieved the success in the eyes of, of society, our society, and I lived in a nice house, drove a big car, went places, and I went first class if I wanted to. And I just had, I guess there was a lot of despair in me that what's up with this? I had two companies. They were both successful. I was earning a lot of money and lived in a nice house. Had a beautiful wife, two children. They were teenagers, early teens, very early, and I couldn't appreciate what I had, and I didn't understand why. So I was granted willingness, the willingness for outside help, to seek outside help. And that came, and no virtue of mine, I just had it. And I did. I sought outside help, and my then wife said, I talked to her about it, and she said, well, we don't need outside help. We can work this out ourselves. And translated to my translation of that was, you do everything the way I want it, and I'll be happy, and then you'll be happy. But I wasn't going to be happy. That I needed an answer, something. So I ended up agreeing to go to this place, which was, I thought, a mental health clinic. And it was a treatment center, which, of course, is a mental health clinic, but it's not the kind I thought I was going into. And the truth is that I thought that I was going to find out who I really am, because I didn't know, and that it might not be a nice person, and that I might not be able to go home. They might send me to some place, lock me up. I honestly felt, I feared that, but I went anyway. And I, after I was there a couple of days, I realized that I'm an alcoholic. And it was okay. I mean, I could not maybe fully accept that, but I wasn't going to resist that idea, okay? Your stories, the people in meetings that I had to go to, and the people who were in that treatment center, I identified with a lot of what they felt and what they were going through. And so I thought, well, I think I'm an alcoholic, so let's just go with that. And I did. And boy, I had no idea. And it's a good thing, when people are newcomers, it's good that they don't have any idea what they're going to have to go through in sobriety to grow up. Because, when I got to the treatment center, I was probably 14 or 15 years old, maturity, and that's what I was on the inside, and that's how I looked at everything. And there are a lot of questions and unanswered questions when you're in that place of immaturity, because part of me was able to function and grow in my career and to be successful. And yet, when it came to interpersonal relationships, I didn't have a clue. At the time I went into the treatment, I didn't care about other people. Really didn't. A little bit, but not much. And so I had a long journey, learning. Educators would say the learning curve was pretty steep, for me. And but I didn't have any reluctance to try. Now, what I've said to you already would indicate that I have willingness, and I'm at a place where I can get help, and I would just allow that influence to work on me in all parts of my life. But that wouldn't be true, because my ego has a dark side, and it wasn't going to let go. It was going to hold on no matter how much it hurt. And boy, that first 2 years of my sobriety, it was just a roller coaster. I mean, I would want to accept change. I would want to cause things to change, by reading and doing the things that people need to do when they're in early sobriety. And then my ego would show up at a weak moment, and I wouldn't follow. It's just like drinking. I mean, people want to stop drinking, and yet they keep drinking. And I didn't have that problem, but it doesn't mean that I couldn't have, because I think I found sobriety early enough not to go down to the bottom that some people have to suffer with. And I'm very grateful for that. And you folks loved me until I could love myself, until I could love you back, until I could be a different person than I was when I showed up. I didn't want to hurt people, but I did. And I didn't know that drinking was going to cut me off from the sunlight of the Spirit, because I didn't know what the sunlight of the Spirit was. I heard people's testimony, Christians that would say that finding God had made a difference in their life and all that. And there's a quote by someone whose name I can't remember now. He was a Russian, and he said that religion is the opiate of the masses. And I believed that. So I had a lot of reluctance to do some of the things that you did. In the big book, I was reading the big book last night, and holy smoke, I mean, it goes over and over and over and over examples of how people, if they do find a God of their understanding, how it changes their life. And my ego wasn't going to let me understand that or see it or entertain the thought. And the old ego would jump out when saying a prayer before a meeting or after a meeting, or read something spiritual that had a churchy word in it. My mind would just click off, and I wasn't going to hear it. So I was 10 months sober, got a new sponsor. He got me on my knees. I went to his office to talk to him. And he left his office door open. We're in there talking, and people are going by in the hallway. I'm on my knees. He's holding my hand, and he hands me the big book, and he said, "Here, read this prayer, 3rd step prayer." And I read it, and I got up and sat down. He got behind his desk, and I didn't know it, but I was on a different path from that day on, because he loaned me his God, the God of his understanding, until I could figure out one for myself. And he gave me permission to be. And even though I was not, and I was 10 years sober, and I thought, man, I got 10 years, I am going to make it in this program. Well, there was a lot of work to be done after that. So I've learned in the program that we never learn everything about ourselves or about the program or how to live life, and we never get to the place where there's no room for improvement. And I've proven that theory for a long time, and I still, I'm a lifelong learner. Being in the program allowed me to go to college, and I got a couple of degrees, and I learned who I am. First degree, they taught me how to use my brain, and the second degree, they taught me all about me, because it was counseling psychology. And gee whiz. Psychotherapists, you go see them, they're gonna ask you questions so that they can establish something in your past and understand it, and then introduce some ideas that you might use to improve the way you're feeling. Because none of us, I haven't heard anyone ever in the 43 years that I've been going to AA meetings who said, man, I was having a great day and I decided I'd just go to AA and see what they do. Nobody does that. Our society doesn't care what we do, just be quiet and stay in your place and don't cause a lot of trouble, you know? And I've tried to do that. I want to talk about change because, like I started my talk today, you know, I knew that there would have to be some change in my life, but I didn't know what they would be. And it's ironic that we alcoholics, well, actually, I think it's a human nature to resist change in some areas of our life. And probably at different times, it's different things that we resist. But we alcoholics, you know, we're very strong-minded, and we all suffered from our instincts gone wild. And so we get into AA, and they say change everything but your shoe size. And when they told me that, I didn't understand what they meant. I accepted what they said as, okay, you're going to have to make a lot of changes, and we're going to show you how. But just keep showing up. And I learned pretty soon that because I had this mental block against religion, and I had an idea what spirituality was, but I didn't really have an understanding. And so, you know, I was told to fake it till you make it and things like that. And that helped. I didn't accept it at first because I didn't know how much how far I had to go to fake it. But I just hung in there. You know, God gave me the ability to persist in something. If I focus on it, and I can do that. And that's what I've been doing for 43 years, is focusing on my sobriety, focusing on how to be a better person in God's world. And I've learned, and I daily ask for God's help in carrying out His will, whatever that is. And it's been a great journey, and it has been very gratifying that I'm now the person that I always wanted to be. I'm more like that, and it's because the program allowed me to be who I am. I had a professor, and I started college at age 46, and I had a professor of philosophy, and we were in this class of 160 students, and we were in an engineering lecture room, and they had blackboards from one wall to the other wall. Man, oh man, and they had blackboards that would go up, you know, and they'd write underneath, and then they'd pull it back. Anyway, this professor was at the blackboard, and he was talking about, I don't remember the exact topic, but he said, being. He yelled it out, and he's pounding the chalkboard with his chalk, and the chalk is splittering, going all over. And I didn't have a clue what the heck he was talking about. What's being? And now I know that changing my habits, stopping drinking alcohol, hanging out with you folks, getting as much wisdom from the big book on a daily basis that I can get, I can be the person that God, closer at least to what God intended when I was born. And that's a big deal. That's a very big deal. I'm going to take a moment here. I want to talk about prayer and the effect of prayer on my sobriety. Now, I had plenty of experience before I got here to AA that, for the foxhole prayer. God, please get me out of this, and I promise I won't do it again. I did that. And then I did it over and over again. And so that didn't work. So prayer, what use is prayer? Well, my then wife, after I was 14 years sober, we separated, and 2 months later she filed for divorce. And I saw that I had already closed one company and taken a 60% pay cut because I couldn't tell the lies that I had to tell to be in that business. And so here I was holding on dearly to this small company that was growing, that I had started in my garage in Silicon Valley. There's a lot of stories in Silicon Valley about people who did that. I did it twice. I did 2 companies, started in my garage. They were both successful. And that's where the perseverance, God gave that to me, and I had it, and I was willing to do it. And I was in sales, and there were a lot of turn downs, a lot of missed opportunities because I was drinking, and I would not show up for some appointments, things like that. Well, anyway, getting back to the place where I was, in my madness, my insane thinking, I was plotting to murder my wife. I really was, and I had my 12-gauge shotgun in the trunk of my car. I'm carrying it around, and I made the mistake of telling somebody. And they told me what so many of us have heard, Well, if you have this resentment and it's eating you up, you need to pray for the SOB. And I hadn't had any luck with prayer, but I was sort of at the end of the rope, holding on to the knot that was tied there. I'm at the end of the rope. So I reluctantly start doing that. And I'll be doggone if after some period of time, a week, 10 days, it wasn't 2 weeks yet, because they told me to do that for 2 weeks. Pray for the SOB. And one day I noticed, it was in the afternoon, and I noticed I hadn't thought about this person so far that day. And I had to report that to my home group. And nobody came up to me afterward and said, "I told you so. You didn't do that. You just allowed me to be whoever I was at that moment, and you accepted me and gave me as much latitude as I needed in order to grow." And that was the worst period of my early sobriety, was then. And one would think that, well, if the resentment was that severe, and I was given a suggestion on how to take care of that I would remember that and try to apply it to all of the things that were bothering me as I go through my day or my life. Not true. I'm a good little alkie. That's what I call myself. And I can hold on to an idea that's wrong longer than is good for me. And so I did. And, like I told you, the 10-year mark. And I wasn't smug about having 10 years, but I was pretty proud of it. I went to this, and so, God has a funny way of working in our lives. I went to this meeting that was not near where I lived. I had to go, I don't know, 15 miles or 17 miles to get there. But I had heard that it was a really good meeting. And it was a huge meeting. This in California, there must have been 300 people there.
Oh, wow.
And they're giving out chips, for length of sobriety. And I walked up and got my 10-year chip. And, there were other chips for longer sobriety after me and shorter sobriety before me. And there wasn't, like I've heard said, that there was no parade, no, nothing special just because I had the 10 years. And everybody else was celebrating whatever they had, and which was great. But so my ego took a beating that night. And I think that's when I started looking for this sponsor. So coming back to change again, in the meetings that I would go to, I would just talk about whatever was going on with me. And I would listen to what other people had to say, and it was all about change. We are trying to move away from the life that we had before while we were drinking, and there's a transition period. Luckily, the transition period starts with a pink cloud, so that we are lulled away from the drink into the program until we have to write our fourth step. I think the fourth step makes the cloud disappear. What I think, 'cause it sure did for me. Yeah, but change is the only constant in our lives. And why is it that we resist it so much? I don't know the answer to that. Turning it over. Boy, oh boy. We hear a lot about that in meetings when we're expressing problems that we're going through or situations, and that we need to turn it over to God. And there was no turning over in my early sobriety at all. And not much, a whole lot anyway, in the first 10 years. Now, I was 2 years sober, started college. I was 46 years old, and that was all about learning. And I didn't resist that like I did resisting the suggestions on how to make changes in my behavior, how to take a different perspective on something, some idea or some situation. And I didn't have a lot of luck with that turning it over. But I want to relate to you something that happened last week. I have this. I started another little company down in South Texas, and it's a mortgage broker, and I knew something about it, but I was in a meeting. There were 4 people there, and there's an attorney, a guy who buys and sells real estate, and myself, and this wealthy man, this investor. And the investor made a comment that from then on he wanted to have all of the transactions for when he bought and resold the properties and created these mortgage notes that I deal with, that he wanted a licensed mortgage loan originator to handle that. And there was no one in that room who could do that. And I opened my mouth and I said, I can do that. I'm 83 years old. And this investor, a nice guy, and I knew him, I'd talked to him and been to lunch with him. And so the attorney, who was a friend of mine, said, okay, that's that. Hal's going to get that license and he's going to take care of it. And that was the end of the conversation about that. So I did it. I had to take the exam 3 times. Hardest exam I ever took. But I passed on the 3rd time. And I was close, within 5 points the first time, within 3 points the second time. And I had a little talk with God. And then I talked to this attorney friend of mine too. And I told him, I don't know whether I should proceed with this or not. I mean, it wasn't my idea, but I volunteered and it's something I'd like to try. And my attorney friend didn't give me the answer. He let me come to my own conclusion, and I decided, okay, I'm going to take it the 3rd time, and if I don't pass it, then that's that. It'll be God's will that I'm not supposed to do that. And I took it, and I passed it, and the people in the testing lab there, I knew them well, I didn't know anybody there, but when I came out of the lab and they said, well, you passed, and there were 3 or 4 of them there, and they almost gave me a applause. Wow, Hal, we're really happy that you passed. Like, congratulations, and all of that. So that's the little company I'm working with right now, and I think it's God's will that I be in that, because I am helping people who buy those properties, that they're tax delinquent properties that this investor buys, and then it's cleaned up and prepared for residential use, sold to somebody. And most of these people who are buying these properties have never bought a property before. Never. They don't own a house. They have visions of living the American dream on this property that they're buying. And I get a chance to give them some different ideas about money and how to handle money, and I go through all of the details of the mortgage loan that they're signing papers to commit themselves to, and I get a lot of satisfaction when I start these sessions with these folks. They're on edge. They don't know what to expect. And often, not every time, but often, by the end of the meeting, we could end up giving hugs to each other, because they're very warm toward me, and they So I'm carrying the message in that way too, and they feel they're not so so nervous about the transaction that they're committing to, because I'm showing them how they can save money on the loan, and how they can, if they have the capacity, to pay a little extra every month and shorten the length of time and save a lot of interest that they would have to pay. And I tell them, most of the loans we do are 20-year loans, and they'll be borrowing, I'll just make up some numbers, $42,000, and they'll be paying $89,000 worth of interest over the 20 years. And I'd show them how they can not pay that much. And I explained to them that those loans don't last that long anyway. The great majority of those loans, 5 to 7 years, they're either refinanced or there has been a construction loan and it has paid off the mortgage for the property itself. And so I don't know, maybe what I give them is some hope that they can make it work. I don't know. But I like doing it. And I'm going to do it as long as I can. Now, I'm 87 years old. I shouldn't even be buying green bananas, but but I just take this one day at a time. The program taught me, and when somebody said that to me in early sobriety, and this was in that first 2 years, take it one day at a time, I did. I took it, and I've held on to it all these years. And that has made the difference. That and the fact that I have come to believe that there is a power greater than myself. I'm not it. And that if I just keep doing what I'm doing, and have an open mind for change, then everything's going to be all right. And that's the way it seems to have worked for me. Now, there's one other lesson that was really difficult for me, and I want to relate that before I end my talk, because I don't want to keep you here too long. I know your appetites are at work, and we're going to have something to eat. And that is, every person that comes into my life is going to leave me in my presence, my life, either through death, circumstance, or choice. Now, when somebody gets close to me, I don't want them to ever leave, And what I've just told you is the truth, that they are going to leave, or I'm going to leave, or something's going to cause them to have to be away from me, or they're going to choose that, to do that. So, boy, oh boy, if nothing is permanent, the change is the only constant, and I want everything to stay the same. You see that there's a little conflict there. And I hear it all the time in the meetings, that we talk about resisting the change that's happening, and the change may end up being a good thing. But we don't see it at the time. So, I found this on the internet, and it comes from the website was Attitude to Inspiration. I don't really know who the people are, but I really liked what they had to say, and here it is. I have to read it. If someone comes into your life and has a positive impact on you, be thankful that your paths crossed. And even if they can't stay for some reason, be thankful that somehow they brought joy into your life, even if it was just for a short while. People come and people go. Some stay and some don't. And that's okay. Remember the good times and smile that it happened. And that's what you have taught me. You know, I can be in a strange place and go to a meeting and be at home. Because that's why I always start off what I'm going to say in a meeting with hello family. Because you are my extended family. And I need you. And I want you. And I am one of you. I'm like a grain of sand on the beach of AA, and you're right there near me, and we all look alike on some ways, and we're different in other ways. But boy, oh boy, for me to go from having all this anxiety and being empty, and now I'm full of what you have given me. And all I need to do is show up. And I'm going to do something that I'm nervous about, and you may be nervous about when I tell you. I'm going to sing you a song. And this is a very heartfelt song. Well, I've sung this song, and I'll sing it again. Of the people I've known and the places I've been. Of some of the troubles that bothered my mind. And a lot of good people that I left behind. Singing so long, it's been good to know ya. So long, it's been good to know ya. So long, it's been good to know you. What a long time since I've been home. And and I've got to be drifting along. Thank you.